Your body actually didn't even make the baby correctly. It had a 0% chance of even making it. And by the way, you could have cancer now. I have been wanting to share this with you guys for a while. If you follow my channel, I've been sharing about my miscarriages. I've had 2 miscarriages, and we found out that our second miscarriage ended up being a partial molar pregnancy. There isn't a lot online about partial molar pregnancies, mainly because it is such a rare thing to happen. It's one thing to go through a miscarriage, but then a miscarriage with a partial molar pregnancy is a longer, lingering, it brings more to process through and to grieve. Just to give you an outline, I'm going to talk about what a partial molar pregnancy is, what my pregnancy was like, what it was like finding out, and what it meant going forward, kind of like the process of dealing with a partial molar pregnancy, and then just my feelings with a partial molar pregnancy and what that felt like and feels like, because we're still in it. It's not over yet. So our baby was Sunny. So this is Sunny's story. I just hope that, again, this either helps you be aware of that this is a possibility or comforts you if you also went through this, because it is not fun. I had heard of this on some miscarriage forums when I had my first miscarriage, but I didn't see it often and I didn't really know exactly what it meant. 2 sperm fertilized my egg, so that meant that there was way more chromosomes than normal. It created an abnormal instructions, abnormal cells. We had our baby develop, but obviously because there was 2 sets of chromosomes, things didn't fully develop normally. And then with the placenta, it meant that there was placental tissue, but also abnormal cells, abnormal, basically essentially tumorous product. So it wasn't really a full placenta. There's no chance that your baby can survive. It's not developed right. There wasn't the right instructions to make a normal, healthy baby. It's pretty rare, which is why you probably haven't heard of it, which is why I hadn't heard of it. 0.005 to 0.01% of all pregnancies. Very rare, not a very common thing, although it does happen. With a partial molar pregnancy, your body essentially created cancer. Cancer is abnormal cells, and your body created abnormal cells. When you finally either miscarry the baby or have a D&C, there is a chance that over time, like microscopic pieces of the abnormal cells can stay in your uterus and grow into cancer. That is why, depending on your situation, they recommend waiting 3 months to try again to a year. Normally it's 6 months, I feel like, is like what I've read is like normally what doctors recommend, just to make sure that there's no cancer. It's hard because when you're pregnant, you obviously wanted a family, you wanted a baby, and when you go through a partial molar pregnancy, to get told that you have to wait from either 6 months to a year to try again, it's just even more devastating because your plans are just completely put on hold, and they already were put on hold with the miscarriage, but then to have to wait and then also have this looming threat of cancer. And just, this was my second pregnancy, so this was my first pregnancy after loss. We had miscarried in June, and I had found out that I was pregnant with Sunny in September. We were excited, we were hopeful. Even though we were scared, we kept fighting for hope, and it just felt like, because we got pregnant on the first try again, we were like, yes, this is meant to be. We also had found out that we were pregnant at the same time as one of our close friends. So it just felt like God was like, yes, 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 you are supposed to be pregnant. This is amazing. And I found out really early. I found out at 9 days past ovulation, which was crazy. With this pregnancy, it started out really normal. With my first pregnancy, I definitely started feeling nauseous pretty early, like around like 5-6 weeks. And with this one, as soon as it hit 5 weeks, it hit me like a truck. I was like, wait. And it was way stronger than our first pregnancy. With our first baby, I didn't throw up as much. It was more like the threat of throwing up. But with our partial molar pregnancy, I was throwing up so much. I literally had to eat every single hour in order to not throw up. It was terrible, terrible, terrible. What we learned later was with partial molar pregnancies, your HCG levels skyrocket. But for me, I thought it just meant I maybe am having twins. This pregnancy is way stronger than our first pregnancy because of how often I was throwing up. This must be more real, more sure, like everything's stronger. So I was taking it as, this means that the pregnancy's better. This means that our baby has a better chance. Just looking back at that, I just feel even more betrayed. How cruel is that? So not only was it a terrible pregnancy, it didn't result in our baby. So to go through all of that and to have it be such an extreme level of nausea, exhaustion, and to have it be because my body was making everything wrong and essentially not making my baby correctly is just, Another sign that I thought was a good sign was that my abdomen was really large. I, again, thought it was twins, thought it meant that my baby was growing really well. So I would take pictures comparing like where I was with our first baby to this one, and I was visibly bigger. My boobs were also bigger. I just felt like I was flourishing, you know, but because of the HCG levels for one, but also because your body's creating a foreign substance in you that your abdomen can get inflamed and, you know, just like swell. I do remember like during this pregnancy having this sense that something was wrong. I remember in the early weeks I thought that maybe I was having like an ectopic pregnancy. That was just more of a fear. I feel like I didn't have any symptoms of that, but I just feared something going wrong, like something in the beginning wasn't right. I didn't know about a partial molar, but I do feel like my body and my senses knew that something in the beginning didn't form correctly. Throughout the whole pregnancy I was fighting for hope, holding on that like everything was going to be okay and to not fall into this despair that we'd lose our baby again. But I just had this feeling that things wouldn't go right, even though from what I was experiencing everything was good, you know what I mean? Like I had a strong pregnancy. It felt like I was growing. I, you know, was experiencing a lot of really strong pregnancy symptoms. I remember I was on a walk, I ran into our neighbor and she was really excited that we were pregnant again. She knew about the first loss. She was like, oh, I just have a really good feeling about this one. And my mother-in-law would say like, oh, I just have a really good feeling about this. And it was reassuring to hear that because I just didn't have a good feeling, which I hated. I just chalked it up to this was our pregnancy after loss. Surely like I'm gonna feel like a little bit like uncertain about it. Long story short, it was a long, brutal pregnancy. We decided to get an ultrasound at around like 9 weeks, 4 days. This was around the time that our first baby had heart stopped beating. So we were like, we're not gonna wait, you know, much past that. We wanna get the ultrasound around that time because chances are if we make it past this, we should be good. I just remember like getting ready for this appointment and I remember getting dressed being like, this is the first time I'm gonna meet my baby, like what should I wear? We just kept thinking like the chances are that like the chances are so low that you have a miscarriage back to back, surely like we're gonna meet our baby. My pants barely fit, you know, it seemed like things were good. And we got our ultrasound and it seemed like our baby looked a little different than before, but I didn't know, like ultrasounds are so hard, especially at that early of stages. It's hard to tell like what you're even looking at, but I knew that our baby looked different than our first baby did. But the biggest thing obviously that I noticed is there wasn't a flicker, there wasn't a heartbeat, and we were told that we were miscarrying again, and literally that the baby, it had basically died yesterday. Since it was our second miscarriage, they were like, you know, you have these options, you can either do a D&C, the pill, or natural, and I wanted to do it naturally again. No one told us anything. I don't know if you can see that kind of pregnancy on an ultrasound. No one said that that was a possibility to happen. So I mean, we just thought it was kind of the same as last time, and I just assumed that this would go the same as last time, like miscarrying naturally. With our first baby, basically once the baby died, it was a pretty like slow fade of my symptoms going away, and I kind of could tell by the time we got the ultrasound that like I didn't feel as large, like I didn't have as many symptoms. But with Sunny, the baby had, you know, died, but I was growing up, I felt pregnant, my boobs were large. For literally 2 months, I was still experiencing symptoms. Like I may as well have been pregnant. Like it was as if nothing had changed. My body just wasn't registering that the baby had died since the levels were so high. That period of waiting to miscarry naturally was terrible. It's enough to deal with the grief of losing your baby and then to be experiencing pregnancy symptoms throughout. Just to be in your body and to have it be the place where your baby died and it feels so foreign to you now. We had done some testing with the first one because I pushed for it. When we found out about Sunny, I was like, okay, let's find a doctor, let's figure this out, let's do some testing, let's get at least a plan. When we went to see this other doctor, I wasn't expecting to get tested that day. I just more wanted plan of attack, what to do, because obviously when we went to see her, I was still carrying our baby. I was still actively waiting to miscarry. But at the time she said, well, we could test your thyroid right now. And I was like, are you sure? Like I'm still pregnant essentially. Like I still am carrying this baby. Like doesn't that affect your thyroid? Like won't that mess up the results? And she was like, no, your thyroid should be the same all the time. We can just get that tested and kind of know where you're at. Against my gut, I decided to get the thyroid tested. So a few weeks later, they called me and said, your results are really low. It ended up being a 0.01, which is extremely low in relation to the range of where your thyroid would be, which puts me at risk of possibly having hyperthyroidism, which is where your thyroid is extremely overactive and can mean a lot of different things for getting pregnant again, miscarrying, all that stuff. That was definitely definitely a grieving process. It was like, what's going on? Like, I'm scared, you know, for what this means. Looking back now and knowing what the pregnancy was, I definitely wish that we hadn't gotten that testing done. Long story short, I ended up waiting 8 weeks for my body to miscarry. I did that with my first baby, so I knew it could take a long time. I just had this feeling that it wouldn't come. We kind of passed all the markers of when I thought things should be doing something, but nothing was happening. And again, I felt so large. I felt so pregnant and sick. That's when we made the decision to get a D&C. I also made a video about that if you want to watch that, because it was very unexpected. It wasn't what I wanted at all. But now looking back, knowing that that was the pregnancy that it was, it makes sense that my body, one, didn't register it, and because I think things were abnormal. Like, I just think things weren't like going, you know? With a D&C, if you don't know, they test the baby. Basically what they told us was like, we need to take your baby, we need to test it just to be doubly sure that it is a baby. And we didn't love that, because obviously we wanted our baby. We didn't want it to be sent to some lab or, you know, get tested for no reason. But obviously we did that. Again, from what they told us, it was like, there's nothing crazy that's gonna happen. But this was a couple days before Christmas. I got an email that we got lab results back, and I knew that this was most likely just the one to confirm that yes, it was a baby that was in you. But our doctor said, hey, like, with these results, like, we might need you to come back for more blood work. You know, we'll keep you updated. We need to do some more testing. I was like, wait, what the heck? Like, I know that this isn't, something must be wrong, because this is supposed to just be like a normal confirmation thing. That's when we were reading further and we found out that there's a possibility, and most likely, that our baby was a partial molar pregnancy. And from there, AJ and I were on this couch, we were researching what that meant, and I had heard of it, but I didn't fully know like what it meant. That's when I saw that it can cause extreme nausea, cause extreme HCG levels and symptoms. It can cause abdominal swelling, and that's when I learned that it can cause cancer if anything is left in you. The risk of that is really low. It's like 1% chance that you develop this kind of cancer, which was comforting. But anytime you see, you know, the word cancer, no matter what the risk, like how low the percentage is, you're still just like it's not good. And that's also where we found out that a partial molar pregnancy can cause a thyroid storm, because your body is just, everything is going wrong and your thyroid just becomes overactive. That was a sigh of relief. It was like, that has to have been what my results were about. And our doctor said, you know, we want you to come in every week to get your HCG levels tested until they hit 0. Once they hit 0, then we'll test you once every month for 3 months to make sure nothing got left behind, everything's good, and that cancer isn't developing. Because if, let's say, my levels aren't dropping or they plateau, it means that there's potentially things left over in there that's registering that as HCG, and it means that cancer is possibly developing in my uterus or elsewhere. It can spread other places from what I've read. So that was a plan of attack. I'll put more of the details of like the timeline of everything, but I think it took me about 5 blood draws or 4 blood draws to get completely to 0. Thankfully, my levels dropped pretty well. Like, they had significant drops. It's great. I have heard that, especially with a partial molar, your HCG levels can take a long time to reach 0, especially when you get to those smaller numbers. It definitely took longer than my doctor thought. You know, he was always hopeful the next week I'd be 0, but it did drop, and it did reach 0, which, praise God. Now I'm currently on my once a month for 3 months testing to make sure it is still at 0. So in a couple weeks, I'll get my first monthly blood draw and make sure it's at 0. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Kind of what AJ and I have been processing through since Christmas, basically. It is such a wild thing to comprehend. And when you first find out, I don't know, you just feel completely blindsided. Like, what happened in me? What went wrong? Like, how could this happen in me? Like, are you sure? You know, it just feels so crazy. It feels like winning the lottery, but in like the worst way. It just feels so purposeful, especially like as a Christian and believing in God. It's like the odds were for us, you know, like the odds to have a normal pregnancy after a miscarriage, the odds to not have a pregnancy, like a partial molar pregnancy. Our odds were that we just would have a normal baby and life would continue and be normal, but we hit all of those. And so it just felt like, God, like, why did you allow this to happen? This felt like you had to have handpicked this to happen to us. The hardest part for me, especially right away, was that the miscarriage wasn't over. It was just such a long process for me to wait to get pregnant, to go through the pregnancy, find out we lost our baby, then to wait to miscarry. And then for me, it was like tragic to have it ended in a D&C. Like that was like the last straw. I was like, it's finally over at least. Like at least it's finally over. And then to get this result a few days later, be like, actually, you know what? No, your body actually didn't even make the baby correctly. It had a 0% chance of even making it. And by the way, you could have cancer now. You know, it's just not over. Was just like, I think back to myself then and I'm like, I just feel so sad and just exhausted thinking back to finding that out. I am not good at blood draws. I've never been. I've rarely done them in my life except with pregnancy and all these blood testing things. Like I've had to do a lot and I dread them. That just on top of everything just makes it that much harder. It's just like this looming threat of cancer, which is awful. You know, like again, you're dealing with a miscarriage already, the loss of that. You know, you have to go through Christmas and holidays and milestones and everything, and you're dealing with this. Sometimes it feels unfair. You know, it feels exhausting and no one understands because it's such a rare thing to go through. Like most people I tell about this, like had never heard of it. I think just like going back to the hospital weekly, you know, for weeks, for, you know, about a month or so after I was going to the hospital getting my blood test. And it's just this constant, like, you have to like actively do these things for it. I'm still, for this miscarriage, going into the hospital, getting tests done, having, you know, appointments, hoping the results are good. Like it's just like this anticipation of like, what's the results gonna be? What is it gonna be? Like, and you have no control over it. So you're just out of control even more again. Probably one of the biggest feelings that I felt and still feel is that we didn't get a fair second shot. It feels so frustrating to know that there was no possibility of our baby making it. It essentially felt like it was all for nothing. And to have it be like our second pregnancy where we were fighting for so much hope, we had so much prayer going into it, it felt so cruel. I hate that we didn't get a fair second shot. I will say though, a good feeling about having it be a partial molar pregnancy is that I was not expecting to get an answer to why our baby didn't make it, and to have the answer be that it wasn't anything that I did or ate or didn't do. It just purely was the way that our baby was formed. It was very comforting. So that was relieving. You know, miscarriage is lonely enough. It's such an isolating, lonely thing to go through. To go through a partial molar pregnancy, it feels even lonelier. No one's hardly heard of it. No one knows really like what's going on or what it means, or you kind of have to explain. You're kind of the one left with going to the blood tests, like figuring everything out. Like every feeling in your body, you wonder if it's cancer, or every blood test that you do, you just hope and pray that it's normal. And the stress of that, you know, it's like it doesn't go away for you, you know, especially after going through a normal miscarriage, quote unquote. And then this one, it's so different. Like I had different kind of closure with my first baby because the physical side could be done, and with a partial molar, the physical keeps going. It does just make me scared to try again because it just feels like any odds of anything, AJ and I are going to hit them. Yeah, there's a lot that your mind goes through and wrestles with. I think I'm still honestly coming to terms with the fact that we kind of just got slapped in the face with our second try. Like that's what it felt like. Like, cause you just look back at the whole pregnancy and like what you were excited about and hopeful. It was what we thought would be like the baby that would like redeem our experience. Again, to have it the whole time be this just feels devastating, and I think about it all the time. Especially in the beginning, I would just randomly think about how the shock and the terror of your body creating that in you and you having no idea is truly terrifying. I just like would never, I can't imagine that this is even a thing that happens to anybody. Yeah, it's just kind of a double whammy. You know, there's just a lot to comprehend and I don't really think I'll fully like comprehend it. But like I said, I've been waiting to share this with you guys. Like I wanted to give it time for us to hit 0 at least for one time, and to kind of get in a better place with it and to just kind of feel a little bit more distant from it. But I have been wanting to tell you guys right away because it's just so crazy. I'm like, how in the world? And it's just been something that's been really heavy. When something's like heavy on my heart, it's hard for me not to talk about it. But yeah, so that's our plan moving forward. We're hoping mid-April will be the time that I will hopefully get my third 0 and we'll be free to try again after that. So it's a long process. Mid-April, and we still like will finally just be done with it as long as, you know, Lord willing, everything goes smooth and everything. I still cannot believe that that's what happened to Sunny. And if you watch this and you haven't gone through something like this, I just thank you for watching and listening to my story. I feel like that's just, I feel like for women who go through miscarriages, like just a huge part is just listening. It feels like her stories sometimes just feel so lost and purposeless. It just means a lot if you watch to the end of this video. So that being said, be praying for AJ and I if you could, just that things go well just with the rest of this journey. I do have a lot of peace thinking about the cancer side of it. I kind of just like take that out of my mind. Like when I think about it, it's looming, but I can't really like deal with it till we're there. So I keep telling myself like, that's not today's problem. Like right now I don't have anything wrong. We'll deal with it when we get there. And so that's been comforting. I'm not living completely in fear about the possibility of that happening, but I feel like I'm at least in a good place with that. Sorry that this is kind of a little bit of like a sadder video and kind of like a deeper, you know, topic, but definitely miscarriage is something that I've talked about on my channel quite a bit, and I just want it to be something that I share because it's a big part about my life, unfortunately. Yeah, we will get back to fun, regular, thrifty lifestyle content soon. In the next video, it'll be a really fun one, so be sure to subscribe. I put out videos every Monday, Thursday this month. Yeah, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next Latte Chat.